Welcome to part 3 of our practical exercise 6. In this part, we're going to cover these 3 subtasks. 6C, an organizational hiring process listing its flow or step or stages of the process for the focus job selection. Then we'll move to 6D, the style or model for the focus job selection. And we'll wrap up this part with task 6E, who will be the decision maker, singular, or the decision makers, the group. We'll start with task 6C. What would be the hiring process's flow, steps, or stages? And look at the top of the slide in green. What would make sense for your organization and your hiring of the focus job? This figure in our textbook gives the general steps in a selection process, and we can use that as an initial template. But remember, we're asking is what would you keep, what would you change, and what might you eliminate based upon your organization and the job. This chart or worksheet is a layout of the possible stages, and on the right are the text readings and the supporting figures. This chart is a layout of possible steps, stages, the flow of your hiring process. And again, you can use this to shop through, consider on what would you keep, what would you eliminate, what would you change, and what would be your organization's recommended sequence for your focus job. Over to you, hiring managers. Task 6D is your decision on the style or model for the focus job selection. Readings in our textbook provides us 2 options, the multiple hurdle model or the compensatory model. And there's a summary of each. They might be easier to understand if we do examples of each. Here we go. The multiple hurdle model eliminates some candidates at each stage. For instance, let's say we have 300 candidates apply, and we run through the resumes and cover letters, and we whittle that 300 down to 25. These 25 of the 300 are invited to the first interview. After the first interview, 12 of the 25 are invited back for testing. And of the 12 we tested, 6 are invited to the second interview. Of the 6 second interviewees, 3 are invited to the third interview, and then a primary and backup are then put through the physical and the job offer process. If number 1 doesn't make it, always have a backup. But you're constantly going from a big number and working it smaller and smaller. Multiple hurdle model. On the right now, let's talk about the compensatory model, where you form up a group and you put the group through the hiring stages. So let's say the 300 candidates apply, and of those 300, you decide to put 25 through the entire interview stages as a group. So 25 go to the interviews, 25 go through the tests for, let's say, legal process or mathematics. They go through a group teamwork process. The same 25 go through the scoring process, and then of those 25, you then select your top 2 to put through the final process of the physical and the job offer. So you are doing a compensatory model where you're putting a group through the process and then scoring, or are you constantly scoring at each stage and you whittle down the numbers. Multiple hurdle. Well, what would make sense for your organization and your focus job? There are advantages and disadvantages to each. I'd also like to give you a third option. I'd like to introduce this one to you is what if your organization is so small and your hiring process is going to be very effective and efficient and you have a single hurdle model. You might be a legal group, you might have a group of consultants, some other professional grouping where one meeting will do it and we'll make our decision. Not always recommended, but just know that does exist, especially for small professional groups. Then we're back into our multiple hurdle model. Well, what are the advantages and disadvantages? And then the compensatory model. A whole group is put through the process. What are its advantages and disadvantages? Well, the multiple hurdle model quickly whittles down a large number to a much more manageable number. But good candidates might be eliminated without due consideration just because one little thing tripped them up. Whereas on the right with the compensatory model, the advantage is good candidates may get a second chance. The disadvantage, though, is that it's resource intensive because you're going to put a larger group through the entire selection process. So hiring managers, which model makes sense for you in your organization with your focus job? What would you recommend? A single hurdle model, a multiple hurdle model, or a compensatory model? Our next task, 6E, is who is making the decision? A single person, one decision maker, or decision makers, and when it's plural, is who's making the decision inside that group. You're going to have to decide how to decide. Will it be just one person? There's the decision maker, it's theirs. Will it be a senior manager, but with advice from others? So you're having panel interviews and other recommendations coming in from people that have viewed videotapes, that have met the candidates in a social situation. Everybody gets to come in, give their advice and recommendations, and then it's left up to that one senior manager. Or is it going to be an actual group decision? Everybody has an equal vote. Well, again, what makes sense for you, your organization, and the focus job? Over to you, hiring panel. There you have part 3 and its 3 tasks. And it's time to move along to our final part number 4, and I'll see you there.